In today's saturated marketplace, achieving product market fit is undeniably crucial, but it's no longer sufficient for sustaining competitive advantage or accelerating growth. While hitting that milestone indicates your product or service meets existing market demands, it often leaves you in a race against competitors striving for the same goals, using similar tools. The differentiation becomes harder, and businesses find themselves caught in a never-ending loop of feature wars and price battles. This is where the concept of purpose market fit comes into play. It is the natural progression after achieving product market fit, providing an avenue to transcend transactional relationships and create emotional bonds with your customers, employees, and stakeholders by aligning a meaningful why with your what.
Nice. Welcome to Founder Chat live. Tell me what that is all about.
That is someone, an AI reading out some text that we're working on for Sitebox around purpose market fit. And it's just incredible because it sounds kind of has this like David Attenborough kind of like British authority to it. And I just love the way, I mean, it has like perfect inflection. Like it knows how to like pivot the sentence and like hang and then drop. And like, honestly, it's like we were just saying before this, like we used to hire people.
Yeah, man.
And the idea of like getting good text to speech was sort of like, I don't know, like I've tried it many times and this one is just ridiculous. So anyway, it's crazy what's available now.
Well, now there's tools that can do real-time translation.
Yes.
Using AI. In fact, good segue. TechCrunch Disrupt.
Yes.
Last week. Is it last week?
Yeah.
I'm like all mixed up, man. I've been traveling too much.
Yeah.
One of the founders of one of the leading companies I don't remember the name of it, that's doing real-time translation was on stage. And they were talking about how now that it used to require human intervention. And we know, right? We have partners that do globalization, localization. And so there's a lot of nuances to each language, and then there's culture and a bunch of stuff. It doesn't translate one-to-one. And so when they reach those points that do require human intervention, then they just train the model and say, don't do that. This means that.
Yeah.
One time, and then that's it. It's like, it's going to know it the next time. And so imagine that times 1,000 languages or whatever it is. It's just going to get crazy.
I assume like watch a day when like watching this on YouTube and you just put the translate button and then all of a sudden we're speaking Japanese or
in real time.
Yeah. Just like hits it and like all of a sudden
it's only a matter of time.
We start speaking Portuguese.
It's only a matter of time.
With inflection.
Of course. Yeah. Honestly, and it could be months away.
Yeah.
Not years away.
Yeah.
Months away.
Yeah.
And it will happen. And this is the crazy part is this is where I wonder if YouTube will allow this, right? Let's use YouTube as an example, right? And let's use Mr. Beast as an example because he's got the biggest YouTube channel, right?
That's right.
But he also has other YouTube channels that are localized
that do that, like
that are specifically for those markets like Japan and Mexico and or Korea, whatever. And he's popular in those places because his videos go viral in the native language
because he takes the time to translate.
Because he takes the time to overdub them in the language, right? And so the way I see it is he's creating more content, which is more revenue potentially, right? More ad revenue by doing that. So what happens now if, like, is there a conflict? I guess that's my question. If YouTube had a live feature where someone could just dub it automatically live, right? Because then now people are watching the same piece of content, right? But in theory, you'd just have more people watching this one video than
But imagine that videos, being able to say, okay, look, I only speak Spanish. I'm going to watch Spanish YouTube, and it doesn't change. You watch whatever you want, and everything's translated.
That's my point,
Spanish, right? Like it's like.
So what happens to Mr. Beast Espanol? if you don't
It does
need
it a
it,
second time. It redubs it, or
I don't
doesn't, or
know.
it says
That's
no.
my point. Is I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a conflict there or
Yeah.
not. Whether it's a conflict for YouTube or for the creator.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But then in theory, if it's that smart and you dub to Spanish, then the ads should change as well,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
To a more localized ad, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's really what the product is, right? It's pre-roll and all that stuff.
Yeah. That's where the revenue is. Yeah. It's
Anyways,
crazy.
TechCrunch was pretty wild. Just to see, because you were there last year. I showed up at the end.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of, what would you say the theme last year was? More Web3?
Yeah. And still metaverse.
Metaverse?
There's a lot of talk about that.
Yeah. So imagine in one short year,
Trash.
a whole complete
Yes.
conference talking about one thing,
Yeah.
almost exclusively.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
What's nuts though too is one of the talks that we went to was about, it was, and I think I this is how I do conferences. I hardly sit down.
Yeah.
I like hang on by the wall in the back or on an, so if I'm not down within like 10 minutes, I'm out. Like
Yeah.
I just can't. And this one, I think I showed up late too. So I was just standing in the back, and it was someone from Andreessen Horowitz, one of their head, partners there. And he was talking about this crazy thing. He's like, it's called like the end of the apps or something like that. And his whole thing was, he's like, yeah, there's going to be a time relatively soon where you're going to just talk into your phone about what app you want, and it'll create something based on that. And we're like, and I think I remember telling you about this, and I'm like, dude, this sounds so crazy.
Yeah.
But he is so convinced. And I'm like, how crazy would that be if you could just like discuss that with an AI, what app you want? And here we are a year later, and we're sitting here going, okay, basically that's what we have, in
Pretty
a lot of
much.
respects.
Yeah.
Right. We're watching this, like, we were watching videos earlier today where someone was just going over a flow chart of what an app should have or a platform, and it just did it. Or a screenshot of a dashboard,
Mm-hmm.
and it created the CSS for it.
Yeah. If you go to X, Twitter, and just type in GPT-4, whatever, that's pretty much the top trending videos. You'll see a guy taking a screenshot of a whiteboard flow chart with some logic in it, and then Chat GPT spits out some code essentially, and then he plugs the code into his editor or whatever and builds out the page. And sure enough, it's like a wizard or a form, and it does pretty much almost 95% of what he wanted.
Right. And he didn't write out explicit directions. It was all like diagrams.
Yeah, and arrows.
Like, don't do like X here, arrow here.
Yeah.
And it understood that enough
to
to build, like you said, the logic around it. It's crazy.
Right. And another example of someone taking a screenshot of a dashboard, uploading it, and saying, give me this dashboard, basically code it for me.
Yeah.
And then spits out all the different CSS, HTML, JavaScript, whatever.
Right.
He plugs it in, and it's like 90% accurate.
Yeah.
Down to the data and flow charts and diagrams.
That's crazy.
Menu. It's pretty wild. I mean, I don't know how good the code is, but man, imagine now going from 0 to 1, right? Just like everything else that we've been talking about, right? Like,
yes,
it's pretty.
There was another one I was going to tell you about. I think it's called TypeFX. Google came out with this, and it's essentially, maybe I've got it wrong. We'll find it and put a link out. Yeah. But essentially, what it's doing is it's creating a chatbot that does like basically clever writing. Like it understands alliteration. It does like things that are unexpected based on your logic. Like, give me, you can like have it finish the sentence in a funny, in a way that's unexpected. So it's starting to get into really nitty gritty sort of creative writing components, right? Like when we do naming or stuff like that. Like we're always looking for, there's always sort of like the verbal tricks, alliterations, puns, there's all these different like figures of speech that we use. That's what this thing is being trained on and knows how to play with, which is crazy. Because again, like for most parts, like we've tried it too with ChatGPT to sort of give us creative titles or name things, and it sort of struggles.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're figuring that out. So it's only, how crazy. So it's not just like long copy. It's going to be the short, pithy stuff.
Yeah.
The copywriters are like, that's their last vestige, their
Yeah,
last place to hold on to. Is
crazy, man.
is the headline.
Speaking of bots, Jeremiah, our friend Jeremiah, Ouyang, AI pioneer. He's we'll link him up. He did a roundtable at TechCrunch about AI, and it was like the first one of the first day. So people were just getting in, and man, that thing got crowded, like standing room only.
Wow.
Which was pretty cool. But he talked about how there's going to be 1,000 projects launched every month from here on out, and how he predicts going into next year that agents / bots, agents are going to be creating projects on their own.
Wow.
And he said that we're not far removed from a world where the agents are pitching investors. It sounds crazy, right?
That sounds nuts.
But bookmark
But not
this
that
clip.
nuts.
Bookmark this
Yeah.
clip. And again, I didn't say it. He said it.
Right.
But agents will be creating their own projects.
Imagine you're Andreessen Horowitz and you're like, sorry guys, we came out with the founder bot, and now we're spinning up our own startups based on this,
Good
investing
Lord.
in them. But then the bot comes around and goes, guess what, Andreessen?
Yeah.
I got my own fund.
I don't need your money.
I don't need your money anymore. I just made $1 billion, and now I can
that's
seed
the
this
thing
sucker.
is when these agents realize the power of crypto
Mhm.
and the blockchain and how they can create their own currency. I don't know, man. Things can get real weird.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah.
But like, wait a minute, what is this thing, right? This
Mhm.
blockchain thing, and then wait, people are exchanging on this thing. What is this? What is Bitcoin? What is Doge? Wait, you can create your own
Yeah.
economy.
Right.
What's to stop them from doing it?
Right.
Nothing.
And it's completely deregulated. Like you're like, at that point, that's crazy to think about. Like, I mean, we've always said that like the blockchain and Web3 and AI are going to meet up,
Yes.
but it would be crazy if it was like AI that sort of like brought it to light.
They're the
Like
ones-
they're the ones
the
that take
agents?
advantage of it.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, there's this thing,
Mr. Anderson. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
That's what it's gonna be.
Yes.
Man, what a world. Anyways, yeah, there was a ton of stuff. Saw Shaq.
That's right.
He's investing in an education startup.
Yeah.
He's real big about that. But one of the interesting ones I saw was Ty Sheridan, who's the star of Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty awesome movie. And
That's right.
the whole metaverse thing, it's kind of ahead. Well, I shouldn't say there's been movies made about that kind of stuff, but it's just the way it was made.
Yeah.
About how it didn't seem that far removed from today versus like older movies,
Yeah.
which is what I liked about it. But also, it's interesting because he quit acting to launch Wonder Dynamics, which is like a CGI, like, I don't know, company that's doing characters and movie sets and 3D and all that stuff, but they're
Yeah.
using AI,
Right.
like drag and drop, literally.
Yeah.
And I think they have prompting as well in their tool. I saw a
Right.
little demo that they showed.
Right.
But the guy's the founder. He's one of the
That's crazy.
top guys of this company.
That's brilliant. dude.
Yeah. And so what he realized was making, I mean, if you watch that movie, it's more than 50% of it is in this this world. He's an avatar essentially, right?
Yeah.
So imagine the amount of work that went into. I mean, let's just use Avatar for an example. Why do
Yeah.
those movies take 15 years to make, right?
Right.
It's because it's so complex and complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And so him being in those shoes were like, he says, man, this is impossible for creators. That you need so much time and money.
Right.
And he said, like, he's I'm a creative, and who's going to give me money,
Right.
to go and make?
Give me $50 million
Yeah.
to just even get going.
Exactly.
Right.
And so that he found a need, and he's like, we need to change the way this is done for storytellers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they've done. I mean,
Right.
talking about in minutes to be able to spin up
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. We should throw in a link about that because it's honestly crazy to see what you can do. You just put in a clip with people walking around and you
Yeah.
say, this person, I want it someone else.
Yeah.
Make it a robot.
Mhm.
And it does it.
It does it well too.
Move all the movements. So you're not sitting there putting them in like a green leotard and
Yeah.
you know, putting the little
Mhm.
balls all around them. No,
Yeah.
they're just acting.
Yeah.
You know.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So we just wrote a blog post about it too. So check that out
Yeah.
at our website. We'll put a link to it. But anyways, yeah, it was a good conference for the most part. Went to another Llama Lounge event on one of the nights. Man, it was like hundreds of people, and it was like 500 people waitlisted. Like the demand to be a part of this community is insane. And so had a good time there, met a lot of cool founders, and saw demos from some people doing some pretty interesting stuff. I saw one guy with an ad product that created social media ads by linking your Shopify store, or literally taking a picture of your product, and then the bot would just generate the ads with photos, with captions, with colors, like the whole thing. It would just generate it in every format with all the text and everything. And you just basically plug in your social media, and essentially their tool, they want to have the bot run your basically your campaigns automatically.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Just crazy. But that's where it's headed, I think.
Yeah.
Especially for people that don't have creativity,
right, or the budget,
right, or the time.
Yeah,
one it is.
That's really it's kind of interesting too, is like you can see all this stuff, and I mean I can see on some level like an agency using that, but you know what I mean? There was another startup we saw recently that did something similar where we basically chatted with the bot to create a social media post. I think I showed you that one, and it was sort of like you walk through it and it's like asking you questions, and at the end it's like, here it is this good? And you can say, no, do it again, or make it shorter, make it whatever. But it'll even look at your social media account and go, you know, let's change it up. You've done a lot of these posts, let's do it something different. So it's even making like recommendations. It's really interesting. But yeah, and I think this is the thing too with sort of the disruptive nature of it is, as of now, it's sort of picking off, I don't know, it feels like the low-hanging fruit a little bit, which is good, because it hasn't really like taken over, right? Like it's sort of like off to the side. Like I had we had like dinner with some friends of ours last night, and they were talking about how they were just sort of like starting to dabble in sort of AI imagery, and she's a designer, right? And so I was like, well, you should, you know, have you looked into Midjourney? And so of course we whipped out our phones and we're like, you've got to try this. And right on the spot, I was like, you know, and we gave it to our kids, and their kids were playing with it and putting in funny little, you know, prompts and stuff. And it's still in that learning stage. Like everyone's sort of like coming to understand it a little bit. It hasn't sort of taken over people's jobs yet, technically, but it's starting to kind of creep in a little bit. We'll see what happens. But she was saying how she had done some illustrations around character. She would do character design and then do like a bunch of different poses and stuff, sell stuff on Etsy and sort of sell packages of stuff. And she's like, I can't do it anymore. She's like, because these the AI stuff's coming in and generating tons of this stuff and then they'll sell it for a couple bucks. She's like, I can't compete with that. Like that's completely not even worth the effort.
Right.
You know? And so she's sort of at this point where she's like, either I got to join them if I want to do that kind of work, or I just have to go find something else to do with that time. So it is kind of waking people up, I think, to what's this future going to be like.
Yeah.
And I think even at Sitebox, we're looking at that too and saying, how do we, how do we sort of future proof what we're doing so we don't get,
I mean, we got to embrace it. That's
well, yeah, that's
line.
for one,
Yeah.
right? But we got to sort of we got to find ways to sort of bring value that can't be commoditized as easily, right? So anyway, that's
I mean, in 5 to 10 years, are people going to want to say they're a design agency, or
who knows, right?
I have no idea.
Right. What's or what'll probably happen is just the bar will get higher, right?
That's what I think.
So it'll be like, well, great, you guys do branding. Well, that looks like AI branding, and this looks like real branding. Or great, you do website development. Well, that looks like everything's going to start looking Squarespacey, like everything's going to start, because AI isn't really going to be that inventive. It's just going to sort of iterate. And so, so there's always going to be sort of that top layer of creativity sort of being pushed. But I think a lot of the sort of the mid-level down is where it's going to kind of get weird. But we've talked about this, and we've, even in the past, we've tried to do work for people who couldn't really afford it. And we've looked at different business models of very different. I mean, this was back prior COVID. We had a thing called GoGo Logo, and that was we called it our drive-through window, right?
It's the H&R block of design.
Yes. And back then, I still think it would have made a lot of sense, but at the same time, like the struggle was always trying to sell to people who just could, even if you lowered the price, there was still reluctance to even sort of enter into it. So I can see a lot of what we're seeing now fitting that market, this market where really nobody can go. Like the economics of it, just you can't unless it is sort of a do-it-yourself bot. That's great because people can afford that, like a SaaS model. $15 a month to manage this is about what people will pay for some of the stuff that that needs to get done for a small business. So because small business is huge, and that's the crazy thing about it, is it's a huge market, but they just don't have the money to really invest in some of the stuff that we do as a business. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing. I think there's a lot of good that's going to come out of it, but we have to sort of always stay about one step ahead of it.
Yeah. Cool.
What else?
I know Meta announced something, but honestly, I don't really care that much. It might have to do with the Quest.
Possibly, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the Quest, Meta Quest. Meta Quest 3.
Oh, okay.
And so the question is, they're going after like mixed reality.
Okay.
They're calling mixed reality, which is really AR, right? In a sense. But maybe they're trying to beat Apple to some things.
Well,
right?
They technically did, because their Quest 2, right, has a see-through sort of component. So it replicates what you see outside inside, which is what Apple's sort of does too, right? They sort of play on. That's why Apple has so many cameras. Yeah, exactly.
And a $499 price point.
Okay.
Versus what?
4, what Apple's? Yeah, Apple's like $2,400.
$2,400. Yeah.
So
that's going to be.
But that's honestly, and we've talked about. You could go back go back like to this podcast like a year or two ago,
Yeah.
we were talking about that exact thing, that really the trick is not being cut away from the rest of the world so much as like having the two combined. And what's funny is like Oculus touches on it. Like when you first put it on and it asks you to build your boundary around your room or whatever, or you go outside of the boundary, it cuts to this black and white version of everything you see. Because I'll always put those on, and when I'm setting it up and I'm like doing stuff, people are like, what do you do? How do you see through that thing?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, it's got cameras around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of like, but once you're done with that whole experience goes away. And somewhere along the line, people realize, whoa, wait a second. If we made those cameras better and made it color instead of just this infrared thing, that's basically the seeing through the device, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, Facebook kind of realized this, and they sort of made that switch. And then Apple, who knows when they sort of came to that realization, they probably did on their own. But I think that's going to be the way
I saw a tweet
forward.
that said Google Glass was ahead of its time.
Dude, well, here's the thing. Here's my thing, though, is there's a company called Magic Leap, and their whole thing was transparent glass that had an overlay inside. Yeah. Okay. And so they have spent, they've got like $2 billion in venture capital. Like, it's ridiculous. Google's given them like almost $1 billion on their own. And that, to me, with this sort of whatever they call this XR, sort of AR, VR, that, in my opinion, sort of blows Magic Leap out of the water. Like, I don't know what advantage they're going to have, because even to see like this sort of like composite world, it's kind of messed up, because you can't create darkness. You can't create shadow with light. You know what I mean? You can only create things that are bright, and the things that are dark you can't see. Whereas it with the Apple and this Quest is, you'll be able to, it'll render like, say, a dog sitting here that'll have shadow on the floor. So it'll be able to blend those two worlds together into one. Whereas this Magic Leap, I don't know what's going to be. There's so much money put into that, and they never really fully launched anything of value. They just have like beta projects out there, like beta versions of their thing. So they're gonna, I don't know what they're gonna do. They have to pivot, because
no one's
gonna buy that.
Yeah, I don't know,
unless like a pilot maybe. But even so, dude, think about it. Like, imagine like imagine like people working machinery and stuff like that, and having this thing in with a heads-up display. I mean, it's sort of gonna be that maybe is the only thing I can think of that would have an advantage. I think the full,
dude, I would wear a pair of these, even if it was the dumbest, like basic, just text.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, but if it was,
but it blends
smart,
with your,
Yeah.
Whether
that's doing like a real-time translation of, if we don't speak the same language, right? And you've seen prototypes of this stuff in videos before, or directional things. I don't know. You've probably seen Google Maps.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you can actually go to the street level, and then it's like literally an arrow saying go that way.
Yeah.
But why am I holding my phone up?
Right.
Things like that. I'm kind of shocked that something like that doesn't exist even now, even if it is tethered to your phone, for data or whatever. I think that would be pretty cool, because I think they're trying. There's like no. It's like all or nothing, almost. Right? Like it's this big old thing, or nothing at all.
Right. I think one of the things, I think you're going to see all these things sort of come together. I think the metaverse. So there's a game that came out called what is it called? Starfield.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty big right now, and I could be wrong, but the way I understand it is it uses a dynamic that another game called No Man's Sky created, which is essentially you're exploring these planets and you're going around, but where you're going doesn't exist. It generates it on the fly, like as you're going there, so to speak. So all these levels and places you go, are completely AI generated, like on the fly. So no two players are playing in the same
Mm.
playing the same game, essentially. You can imagine like these open world games, like, I mean, shoot, Zelda, for instance, right? These huge worlds that are like 40 square miles of stuff that takes them years to generate the terrain. They're going to have AI just generate whatever, it just keeps going, right? It's like an infinite terrain. And at that point, I think that's when, because if I'm being honest, I think the problem with a lot of the VR experiences is they just feel limited, right? You're sort of, the expectation is that you can kind of, there's a world out there. They even say it like horizons and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's not horizons. It's like rooms, you know, there's nowhere to go. You just get stuck in this place, and there's not that sense of openness, and you get almost claustrophobic on top of it.
It sucks.
So I can see if these things can sort of meet and coalesce, where you have AI sort of generating the worlds for you, I think it would just make it way more compelling. And then you create these bots. Well, I think we've talked about this a little bit too, about there's game developers that are playing with AI generated, we call NPCs, so non-playable characters. So, you know, in a game, you go talk to somebody and they're like, oh, you know, princess is in another castle, whatever. And it's just written out, or it's a single script. So they're playing with this idea of sort of creating characters that run off AI. So they know they can sort of, they know what they're there to say, but they can sort of interpret what's happening around them. And every time you talk to them, it can be different, you know? And if you keep talking to them, they're like, why are you still here? Like, you're getting creeping me out. You know what I mean? Which is normally they have to write that and script that in. But now you can be like, you know, these are all
interact
characters.
with it like it's a real person.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some of them, they're even able to talk. Like, so in some of the demos I've seen, the player is talking, and then it talks back, and it's like a conversation. So you're not even having to type it out or choose what to say out of these three options. Like, you're literally just talking straight to it. That's gonna mess people up.
Oh yeah.
You know. So I applaud sort of Apple and Meta's sort of continuing in that, because eventually that's just going to be, it's going to be too compelling to not do. So, and the technology is kind of almost there, you know?
Yeah, it's very close.
Yeah.
Cool. Ready Player Wonder. Check it out on the Sidebox blog. Go play around with AI. I'm sure.
Yeah, good luck.
Something different will pop up the next time we get on this live stream. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a good one.